We'll soon tell. Just curious, how many people this is your first time to ABATE Day at the Statehouse? Actually, I think Stoner is telling the truth that he's been here many times off of this day, and certainly on Kids Day.
We're getting started.
He's not been to this event prior to this. If you've never been in the building, how many have never been in the building before? Pretty much everybody's been here at least one time or another. So you know the layout, that even though we're on the main floor, this is actually called 2, the basement is 1, so that gets confusing sometimes when you're looking. House and Senate chambers are on 3, Ways and Means and Supreme Court, you go up to the top floors. Basement has some committee rooms. The calendar today is such, and I've got copies of it right here. This morning, if you don't already have appointments with your legislator, the best thing probably to do is see where they're in committee at, because they don't go into session until 1:30. Both houses are scheduled to convene at 1:30. Again, the House of Representatives over here, the Senate over here. They'll probably be close to that schedule today, because they also have some meetings scheduled upon adjournment. So they'll probably go in at 1:30. You're welcome to stay here, and if again you've all been in the building, but if you've never sat in the gallery, that's kind of fun to do sometimes, just to listen. Both chambers have a gallery. You enter those through the 4th floor. Sit there, you need to be quiet, but you can listen to both of them and actually hear what's going on. Although with the monitors and the speakers outside the chambers right now on floor 3, you can kind of hear finally. It used to be you could stand there and watch and not get anything out of it. Now if you get close enough, you can at least hear. So that's an opportunity, but that'll be at 1:30 when each of those houses convene. This morning, there are a number of committees scheduled. And if you don't have an appointment with your legislator, find out what committee they're in, find out what they're meeting, go hang out inside the room and catch when they come out. It works out real well also. If they're not in committee, they may be in their office, or they may not be here yet. They may be dragging in a little late. So again, that's why appointments are good. You can lock in, but a lot of times you can catch them. And at 1:30, if you're still here, all 150 of them will be coming into the floor, into the chambers. So that's a chance to catch them going into the chamber. Once they convene, if you've missed them, you can talk to a doorkeeper and fill out a note, send them in. They'll take it in, have a page taken in, and they'll come out and talk to you in the hall. So those are the options on how you can meet with your legislators today. Here are the calendars. This is the short session, which means we're only 30 session days. Remember, Indiana has a volunteer General Assembly. This isn't their full-time gig. Each of these 150 representatives, the 100 representatives and the 50 senators, have day jobs. It varies. They've got a lot of different jobs. There are a number of attorneys, a handful of retired cops, some school teachers, there are contractors, truck drivers. There's a lot of different backgrounds represented in a citizen legislature. So the short session is only 30 session days, which means we'll be done by March 15th. That's when the session is scheduled to adjourn, and they actually think they may finish a little early. I do not expect them to go long, because that's an embarrassment for them when they do that, because it costs extra money and it doesn't look like they knew what they were doing. So I do not expect that to happen. The only way it may happen is if they get mired down in some of the RFRA stuff and aren't able to get a resolution. They may feel a need to get that done going into an election this fall. So that would be the only way, and that would be a bad idea for them. So they'll get it all done. What that means to us, though, is there are a limited number of days here, and this schedule is moving pretty quickly. It also means that this schedule has limits. The Speaker of the House limits representatives in a short session to 5 bills per representative. They can only introduce 5 bills. The Senate doesn't have quite that same restriction, but they try to limit it just the same. The short session was originally designed. The session is actually set up 2 years. That's why the representatives are elected to a 2-year term. That used to be the way the Indiana General Assembly met. It was a 2-year term, and they only met for like 3 months at the beginning of it, and it was a year and a half before they came back and started over again. Well, a year and a half is a long time, so they decided that's too long. We need to do something in between in case there's an emergency. So the short session was created for emergencies. And I'm not sure that it was ever utilized properly. Because as you'll see with the bills that have been introduced, many of these are not emergencies. They certainly could have waited until next session. So it's pretty much fair game right now. What might get introduced, and there's a bunch of stuff out there. The only things that we're really looking at right now hard are the two that are on your sheet. And we probably have enough of these that anybody you're going to meet, you can get one of these and leave with them. If not, we can follow up and get them for them, and you can just use these as talking points. The first one that we saw was introduced by Senator Yoder. He's not seeking re-election, so this will be his last term in the Indiana Senate. He's from up around Elkhart, up northern part of the state. And if you recall a few years ago in the budget bill, which in the long session, the only statutory requirement, the constitutional requirement of the General Assembly is they have to create a biennial budget. So every 2 years, they have to put together a budget to run the state. They have to. So the budget bill is what they call a Christmas tree bill. You hang stuff on it, just like you hang on a Christmas tree, because it's gonna pass because it has to, one way or another. So a few years ago, we got sort of shanghaied. There was a bill introduced that was not favorable to motorcycles. It would have assessed a fee of $10 annually to every motorcycle registration license plate to benefit the Indiana Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Trust Fund. Not a bad fund. It's just the fact that it was only motorcycles that were going to pay $10 per plate to do that sat really poorly with us. Right. It was a big hit to us, and it inferred that we were responsible for all these brain injuries, and we refuted that and proved that that wasn't the case. However, after beating it in committee 3 separate occasions, we got rid of that. And come to find out, about 2 weeks after the session was over, it had gotten put in the budget bill. What they do with the budget bill, many times, Speaker Bosma is trying to make sure that they have some restrictions where they have at least 24 hours to review it. But many times, historically, and even now sometimes, they bring out a 1,000-page bill at 11:45 at night before the session expires in 15 minutes. The ink is still dripping wet on this because the conferees have just met to get all these things hashed out, and they've smacked each other around and made whatever compromises they think. But nobody on the floor voting on it really knows what's in there. Yes, well, we got to vote on it, and it passes. So 2 weeks later, we found out that that got amended back in by the conferees, and we had that $10 fee. We were outraged, and we came back in the short session and immediately fixed it next year. The way we did that was by looking at the fiscal impact. 200,000 motorcycle registrations at $10 a piece. Well, what does that generate? Well, let's look at 6 million motor vehicles, and what would it take each of those to generate the same amount? That's how they came up with the 30 cents. So it's only 30 cents to every registration, car, truck, motorcycle, anything you put a plate on. 30 cents goes into the Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Trust Fund. Long way getting back to this. Yoder introduced this bill, SB 157, that would remove that 30-cent fee only from motorcycle registrations and leave it intact for all the others. I talked to Yoder about that as soon as I saw it. We were going to meet some more. He's since gotten back with me and told me that it won't be heard, and it was his committee that it's assigned to. He's the chairman, so if he says it won't get heard, I kind of believe that he's right. It won't get heard. Really? I'm not sure of all the backstory, and I'm not sure how important it is to know the backstory, but remember that as motorcyclists, educate, don't legislate has been our motto for a long time. We don't really want a bunch of additional laws, certainly not anything regulatory. So given an opportunity, we'd rather have fewer rules. We don't want to introduce things unnecessarily. We also don't want to draw a lot of attention to ourselves. We just want to sort of stand there and be treated fairly and equally as a highway user and a motor vehicle operator, not just because of the way we dress or the way our vehicle sounds. It's legitimate just like all these others. So don't single us out and pick on us just because we're on a motorcycle. Consider us in a Ford pickup truck the same way. It's a motor vehicle, period. We should be treated equally. Now that goes both ways. We don't want special treatment in a bad way. We got to be real careful about asking for special treatment in another way. So if something like this takes that fee off of us but leaves it for everybody else, that's a bit of a red flag that we weren't sure we wanted to see. So once again, we spent a lot of time talking about that really as a moot point, because it's not going anywhere, but it was introduced. There may be some questions about it, and it's out there. It's in the system. So that way you can tell your people when you get back home, and if legislators ask about it, you can say, we understand from Senator Yoder, it's not going to get heard. So not a big deal. The other is House Bill 1087. A lot of times they have what we call technical correction bills, cleanup bills, and a lot of times that's just to change a word here and there. Sometimes that word doesn't mean much. Sometimes they're literally just typos. The word was wrong, and they somehow got it through. They got to fix it. It's in the law now, so the only way to fix it is to change the law. That's what we in there. So sometimes it's just a typo, just technical. Other times it's a word that does change the context. There's a big difference between may and shall. If it says that Robin may drink that coffee in here, it means he can drink it if he wants to. If it says he shall, we're going to hold him down and pour it down his throat because he shall drink this. He's compliant. So that changes the context. A lot of times they remiss when they first put it through, or it was too soft or too hard, and they need to go back and adjust and fix it properly. Harold can't hear anyway. It's probably the So technical corrections bills come up every session, and a lot of times, again, it's just a word here, a word there. Certain sections of the statutes, like Title IX, is motor vehicle stuff. This year, and every couple of years, the BMV and some others do a cleanup bill on Title IX. They go in and fix things that prosecutors have found weren't strong enough, or that were too strong, or that the word was wrong, or that they can improve or make better, things they need to add or streamline. Well, anybody that's been reading the newspapers over the last 18 months, 24 months, knows that the BMV has had their share of issues regarding fees and overcharges and all of that. So in an effort to try to streamline that and make it more simple and more consistent, that's a big part of the Title IX cleanup bill that they have this session. Much like the budget bill we spoke of earlier that takes place in the long session, when you've got a cleanup bill like this that's supported by a state agency, and especially when it's got as much attention as the overcharges that the BMV head did, it's going to pass. It's going to pass. Now, will it be adjusted and amended? Will there be some things changed through the process? That's likely, but probably not too likely. They won't tolerate a lot of those because they spend a lot of time doing it. Again, long story short, 1087 looks like this. 440 pages of shalls and mays and therefores and why they should and shouldn't. The long and short of it, within here, the things that we see that most affect motorcycles, there are a couple of subtle changes that just change the semantics of a word regarding the rider education program, but it doesn't change the structure. It lowers the fee, and again, a lot of this is about fees, since that was the issue that B&B had. It lowers the fee for a motorcycle learner's permit from $9.50 to $9. That puts it more in line with the other permit fees that are out there, so they're consistent. Additionally, the motorcycle endorsement you need to legally operate a motorcycle in the state of Indiana has previously cost $12. However, it costs $12 every time you renew your operator's license. Every 6 years, when you renew your license, you've paid that $12 since 1980. Apparently, the only endorsement in the state that was charged upon every renewal was, guess what? Motorcycles. Any other endorsement you got, once you put it on there, was a one-time fee, and every time you renewed your license, it just followed along with it. You didn't have to pay for it. So, in an effort to get things consistent and cleaned up, this bill will be effective January 1 of, that's not right. They messed up on this. It's actually, it'll be January 1 of next year. Typically, BMV bills take effect in January, most of them. Sometimes they will July 1, and sometimes there are emergency acts that take effect on signage or on passage, but more often than not, it's January. If you got enough papers, you have Steve?
You need more papers to leave?
We want to try to get a group picture as well.
And by all means, after you've finished today, whoever you have met with, legislators, come back and either tell us or email us. Make sure we know who you've spoken to. So, want to get into so anyway, on the endorsement, it was $12. It's now going to be a $19 one-time fee. So while it's slightly higher, you won't have to do it every time you renew. And how many people currently have a motorcycle endorsement on their license? Guess what? You'll never pay for it again. You're done.
All right.
Not pay for it again. But that'll be effective January 1 of 17. So regrettably, if your license is due for renewal between now and then, you are going to pay it one more time. Another $12. That's what 157 looks like. Pretty simple. Like I said, that's 1087. handful of other bills out there, just so you'll know some of the things that are happening this session. RFRA is getting a lot of attention, still nationally, but certainly within the state. Education reform, specifically with regards to I-STEP testing, has a lot of attention. Measuring school performance is introduced by Senator Cruz, who's also the chair of the Senate Education Committee. That's SB 200. It addresses that, and you've probably read about that. This I grabbed for you just because it's fun. And again, in our mailbox, if you want to go in the Legislative Information Center, our mailbox is right up there in the corner, ABATE of Indiana, and every bill that's introduced, we get a copy of. So thus far this session, the bills that I've picked up, if you stacked them up, would be a stack of papers about so tall. And if you go in the mailbox now, I'm guessing there's probably about this many more.
Do they give those to you electronically?
You can get them electronically, and any of you can go look at them, but as a subscriber to Legislative Information, we get hard copies. So some I picked out just because they're kind of interesting. Senate Bill 149 addresses unmanned aerial vehicles. What are those? Yeah, those are a big deal right now. Trying to regulate those. This one I thought was interesting. A few years ago, they came up with this definition of hate crime. And I never really understood that, because crime is a crime regardless of the reason you commit it. So regardless of their race, creed, their background, orientation, if you assault somebody or you assault them, then that's already a crime. So I never really understood that. But this is similar to that. Battery on a sports official. It provides that battery on a certified athletic official is a Class A misdemeanor. So apparently some referee got beat up somewhere and didn't like it.
Probably during the bingos.
Could be. Makes it a Class C infraction if a motor vehicle involved in an accident comes to a stop in the travel portion of the highway and the operator fails, with certain exceptions, to move the motor vehicle off the travel portion of the highway in a manner that does not obstruct traffic more than is necessary. So they're going to make it a crime. Could write you a ticket for not moving out of the way. Some stuff out there. A lot of it won't go anywhere. Some of it will. But the only things you really need when you're talking to your legislators, let them know that 157 is probably not going anywhere, so not too worried about it. At this moment, 1087 appears to be good. We're going to continue to watch it, and we'll probably support it. See no reason to pose anything in it right now. A lot of that cleanup is necessary. And then on the flip side is a little history about the Rider Education Program and our involvement in it. At this exact moment in time, we are still in negotiations with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to determine what role we will have in the state program in 2016. As a matter of fact, our board is gathering this weekend, and the B&V is coming to address our board. And this weekend, the board will vote on whether we will sign a contract or not. Many of you remember that for 28 years, ABATE of Indiana was under contract with the state for much of that time as the sole provider of rider education statewide. And things came to some changes. New administration at the Department of Education came in, we moved to the B&V, some things have happened over there. And in 2015, for the first time since the inception of the state program, we were not recognized the contract. We were forced to sign the contract. Long story, buy me some beer sometime, we'll talk about that. End of the story, read this before you give it to them so you've got some background. This is pretty much the same thing we passed out at the fall seminar, so if you got it there, this is the same history. But it talks about what happened in 2015 with us as basically an independent provider, not having access to state equipment or state funds, and still going out and training 3,000 riders statewide. ABATE of Indiana should be very proud of the accomplishment that that represents. And then it closes by saying that we are in negotiations with the B&V. What we're trying to tell the legislators right now, we don't want to paint a rosy picture and say everything's wonderful, and then next week have the B&V pull the rug out from under us and you told us everything was good. What happened? So we don't want to go there. Neither do we want to poke him in the eye by saying, hey, the B&V sucks and they're really not doing things. If in fact this weekend we can come to terms. So a lot of this hinges on this weekend. That's why the phrase we have right now is we are currently working with them to try to resolve some issues.
Is there any major sticking points in the way to
negotiate?
Oh,
there are many major sticking points. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and some of them are somewhat irrelevant or should be irrelevant. We probably find common ground on. Some of them have just been, most of it probably is relationships. Again, for 28 years. Remember, we've been doing this for 37 years. We've been doing rider education since before there was a state legislative program. ABATE of Indiana was the primary force in creating the state legislative rider education program, and has been under contract in some way, shape, or form each year. It's been in contract every year, including last year when we were voted into it to just be able to issue a waiver. So with all of that being said, some of the changes in the previous round of contract, the reason we did not enter into an agreement in 2015 were that we didn't think it best served the interest of motorcyclists in the state. Again, a few of the reminders of what happened in the year prior that we found very discouraging. For years, we've been able to train students as young as 15 years of age, which we think has great value. They took that ability away from us. And at a time when we've just got legislation in place to regulate motor-driven cycles. So it was a really poor timing. They also defined an Indiana resident as having to have an Indiana operator's license, a driver's license. Well, that's not necessarily true. Now, a couple of the biggest, most flagrant examples that we found over and over and over are active duty military that are on base in Indiana that may have an Ohio or an Oklahoma driver's license, but they're stationed and living in Indiana. If they want to take a rider course, we ought to be able to get them into one. And the BMV said no. That was heartbreaking. Additionally, we have college students at the state universities, Purdue, IU, ISU, other places that are coming from out of state that have a Nevada driver's license. But tell you what, if they're riding a motorcycle while they're going to school in West Lafayette, if they get hit by a car and they die, they become an Indiana motorcycle fatality. So we have a duty as motorcyclists to take care of all motorcycles. And as Hoosiers, we have a responsibility to make sure that we make Indiana's roads as safe as possible for all the people that are using them, regardless of what piece of paper's in their pocket. So those became critical stumbling blocks in the last round, and some things we're still trying to resolve. So that's the type of issues that we came up with in not signing the contract. But again, we're trying to be just like this. Not yay, not boo. We're talking as we're at right now. We will definitely know something by the end of the day on Sunday when the board finishes. At that time, we'll be able to tell people a lot more. This provides a good history, shows what we have accomplished, lets them know that there were some challenges, and sets the tone that we're trying to resolve. I'm sorry? We will, yes. We'll have an update on what transpires this weekend. As soon as we either sign a contract or decline to sign a contract, we will make that public.
Okay, because last year it seemed like it kind of didn't get around to the members very quick, where we could contact the representatives and said, hey.
And I know this sounds like an excuse, but why do you suppose that is? Because we didn't get answers. We were at the expo at the state fairgrounds in February. At 1 o'clock that afternoon, I'm still on the phone with the governor's office and the BMV chief of staff and the BMV commissioner and BMV attorneys, because they've told us that we can issue a waiver if people take our course. But there was some question about that because people they'd issued the contract to said that we couldn't. So we were still, as the doors are getting ready to open and people were coming in to sign up for a class, we were still working to get confirmation from the state the status of the waiver. So all of that came about much after the fact because we weren't getting answers. Okay. And I do apologize for that because I don't like putting out half-assed information.